Guys, please confirm to me. All of you are getting my voice on screen. Those are attending in online, please confirm to me, guys. All of you are getting my voice on screen. Yeah, good morning, Sunil. Right. Good morning, guys. Right. Right, sir. Now, what we are discussing, the continuation, still we are discussing about prerequisite part only. In a prerequisite part, what we are discussing here, throws keyword. Here we are discussing. Right, throws keyword. You are able to get. We are discussing there. What exactly the throws keyword? Here we are going to understand. Throws keyword is able to bypass the generated exception from current method to the caller method in order to handle exceptions. In order to handle exceptions, throws keyword is able to bypass exception from present method to the caller method. Understand it? What I'm telling to you now. Right, sir. Next one. Right. Then how we are going to do this throws keyword? Then I want to show some example for this throws keyword. In general, throws keyword will be used in a method definition. In general, throws keyword will be used in a method definition. That is in the method declaration part. In general, throws keyword will be used in a method declaration part. That is in a method definition, not inside the method body. Okay, fine. Next one is what next one here after completion of this particular point here. There we have to see an example. I'll show time to time one simple example to you. Now try to observe this clearly. I'll take a project for the sake of this. Right, sir. 1 minute. See this now. Through this even we are able to achieve throws keyword functionality. Now you are able to understand effectively through command prompt instead of IDE. Let me check it. Now this is like what I am telling to you. Tester.java DADV7AM. Here I want to provide tester.java. Okay. Now inside this, I want to take for example class A. Class A. Inside this class A, void M1 method here I have taken. Simple for our better understanding purpose, simplifying the content. M1 method is calling M2 method. Then I need to define M2 method. M2 method is calling M3 method. Then I have to define M3 method, void M3 method. Guys, I'm asking one question to all of you, try to answer for it. I want to raise an exception intentionally. I want to raise an exception intentionally. as per the requirement. So which keyword I have to use there? Throw keyword we have to use, not throws. Throws is different and throw keyword is different. Throws keyword is able to bypass the exception from current method to the caller method. But a throw keyword is able to raise the exception wherever we require. In general, throw keyword can be used to generate the exceptions as per the requirement. Generate the exceptions as per the requirement. Understand it clearly. So void M3 method. Now inside this, I want to raise an exception. Throw new IO exception. Why I'm taking only IO exception here now? IO exception is a checked exception. So I can see the location of the exception, some information of the exception at a compilation time. Compiler can recognize these checked exceptions. No other exceptions are recognized by compiler. Compiler can recognize only checked exceptions. So because of that reason, I have taken IO exception. IO exception is a checked exception. Not only checked exception, IO exception is a pure checked exception. IO exception is what there? Pure checked exception. So that's why I have taken this particular part. Throw new IO exception. Next one, after completion of this particular one, what I am telling there, IO exception is available in a java.io package, not in a java.lang package. If any class which is available in other packages than this java.lang package, and if we are using that a class or interface inside the present Java file, then we have to import the respective package to the present Java file. To import the respective package from Java to the present Java file, what I have to use there? Import java.io.star. What we have to provide there? Import java.io.star. Next one. So now observe carefully. Now here main class is available. Then after this main class, inside this main class, main method is existed. Now my requirement is what there? I want to call M1 method. M1 method is calling what there? M2 method. M2 method is calling what there? M3 method. Inside this M3 method, at line number 10, we have an exception. Understand it here. So this is which exception here now? Checked exception or unchecked exception? Checked exception only. Checked exceptions are recognized by compiler. Unchecked exceptions are recognized by JVM at runtime. Understand it clearly. So now this is checked exception, pure checked exception. Compiler can give a notice to us in this location. One unhandled exception is available. Try to handle that exception. If you run this program, there definitely we are able to get what there. There definitely we are able to get an exception at a runtime. Right, sir. Understand this point here. That's why here we are getting like what they know exception, checked exception here. I've taken clearly. Right. All of you observe carefully. I'm trying to compile this program. You are able to get that exception notice at what line here? No, 10th line. Now let me check it. Right, sir. Now here D colon CD ADV 7 AM Java C space test.java. Here we are getting an exception here. At what line we are getting an exception? Please recognize this 10th line. What is the error here we are getting there? No, unreported exception is what there? IO exception must be caught or declared to be thrown. Must be caught or declared to be thrown. So here we are getting that exception details at what line here? No, 10th line. So that's okay, fine. But my requirement is what there? What is my requirement here? Right, sir. Then what is my requirement here? I don't want to handle this exception at the 10th line. I don't want to handle this exception at 10th line. That means inside this M3 method, I don't want to handle this exception. I want to bypass this exception to the caller of M3 method. At which location we called this M3 method, to that location I want to bypass this exception. I don't want to handle this exception exactly inside this M3 method. I want to bypass this exception to the caller of M3 method. Where we are calling this M3 method, guys? Now tell me. We are calling this M3 method inside M2 method or not? To that M2 method, I want to bypass this exception. To bypass this exception to the caller, no, there we have to use like what there? Throws keyword in a M3 method prototype. Throws keyword will be used in a M3 method prototype. Along with the throws keyword, you have to specify either the same generated exception class or a superclass of the generated exception. Either we have to specify the same generated exception class. Here, what exception is generated here? No, IO exception. Either we have to use IO exception or we have to use what there? No, superclass of the IO exception. Either of the things here we are able to use. Right, sir. Now here, okay, instead of saying this IO exception, end of file exception here, I want to specify. End of file exception is a child class to IO exception. End of file exception is a child class to IO exception. IO exception is a child class to exception. Exception is a child class to throwable. Understand it here? That inheritance hierarchy. First superclass is what there? Throwable. Next class, next subclass is what there? Exception. Next subclass is what there? IO exception. Next subclass is what there? End of file exception. Understand it clearly. All right, sir. All these are checked exceptions only. Now here we are using throw new end of file exception. This end of file exception is also available where? No, java.io package. Right, guys. Now you only tell me if I, okay, fine. Observe carefully here. A small a is equal to new a, not required to call even a.m1 method. But why? Because compiler is scanning the total program. Compiler is not thinking about the method calls, and as per this method calls flow of execution there, compiler is able to identify that exception at the respective line. Okay, no problem here. Now tell me, if I compile this piece of code, where compiler will provide exception details now? At which location compiler will provide exception details, guys? Now tell me. At M3 method call. Where is that M3 method call? Actually, seventh line. At the seventh line, we can see that exception here. Now let me compile this program here. Now here, I want to compile this program Java C space test.java. Now tell me here, seventh line. At seventh line, we are getting it. No, unreported exception. End of file exception must be caught or declared to be thrown. Why? Because at the 10th line we are getting, previously I've used IO exception here, but I changed it later on. Now here end of file exception, the same as it is, end of file exception will be converted to the exception which we specified along with throws keyword. The generated exception is converted to what they know, end of file exception. This end of file exception will be bypassed to which line can know, M3 method call. That is at the 7th line. Okay, fine. My requirement is at M3 method also, I don't want to handle this exception. At M3 method also, I don't want to handle this exception. I want to bypass this exception to, I want to bypass this exception to the caller of the M3 method. Caller method of the M3 method. That is the caller method of the M2 method. Now tell me where this M2 method is called here now. Inside M1 method. Inside M1 method, that M2 method is called. That means at which line number this M2 method is called here now? At the 4th line here. So if you want to bypass exception from 7th line to 4th line, that means M3 method to the M2 M1 method. M2 method to the M1 method. In M2 method prototype, we have to use throws keyword. Along with the throws keyword, we have to specify one exception name. That exception name should be either same as the generated exception or a superclass of the generated exception. Now tell me guys, at M3 method, which exception is available at 7th line? No, end of file exception. Now this time I want to specify like what they know, IO exception. Now what's going to be happening here? No, here we are having end of file exception. Now this end of file exception will be converted to which exception here? No, IO exception. That IO exception will be forwarded to line number 4. Now if I compile this program at line number 4, which exception here we are able to get? No, IO exception, not end of file exception. Already end of file exception is converted to what there? IO exception. Now IO exception we are able to get at which line here? No, 4th line here. Now let me compile and execute this program here. What I'm able to get here? Java C space test.java. See this one. At 4th line, we are getting an exception here. Unreported exception. What is unreported exception? No, IO exception must be caught or declared to be thrown at M2 method call. Okay, fine. Still, my requirement is even in M1 method also, at the time of calling M2 method also, I don't want to handle this exception. Inside this M1 method, at M2 method call, I don't want to handle this exception. If you don't want to handle this exception at M2 method, at the M1 method, then bypass that exception to the caller of M1 method. To bypass exception to the caller of M1 method, in M1 method prototype, here we have to provide like what there, throws keyword. Along with the throws keyword, what we have to provide there, no, some exception class name. That exception class name should be either same as the generated exception at the M2 method call. Here what is available, IO exception is available. Either we have to specify IO exception or super class of the IO exception we have to specify. What is the superclass of the IO exception here? No exception. What is the superclass of the IO exception? Exception. Here we are able to get like what there exception here we are able to get. Understand all of you know. Now tell me if I compile my piece of code, if I compile my code here, automatically that exception will be generated at which line here? No caller of M1 method. Where we are calling this M1 method inside main method. At which location there? At the 16th line we are getting what there? No a dot M1 method. At the 16th line we are getting what there? A dot M1 method. Now here we can observe carefully here what we are getting there. No exception here we are getting. Now let us compile this program here. At 16th line we are expecting an exception type is what there? Exception only. Java C space test.java. Java C space test.java. At what line we are getting exceptions, sir? At 16th line at the time of calling a.m1 method. There we are getting exception. That's okay, nice. But still my requirement is what there. I don't want to handle even that exception inside what they know main method. Inside the main method also I don't want to handle that exception here. But my requirement is what there. I want to bypass this exception to the caller of main method. Caller of main method. To the caller of main method, I want to bypass this exception. So here what we have to provide there, we have to specify either same as the generated exception, that is exception, or superclass of the exception. What is the superclass of the exception here? No, you can understand like what there, throwable. Throwable is a superclass of the exception clear. All right, sir. Now tell me, if I compile this program, where that exception details will be displayed here. Now tell me who is the caller of main method? Who is the caller of main method? Who is executing main method? JVM. That exception details will be bypassed to the JVM or not? To the JVM in the sense, JVM will come into the picture at what time there? At a compilation time or at a execution time? Execution time. JVM will come into the picture at a runtime only, not at compilation time now. So here, initially exception is generated at a 10th line. That is converted to end of file exception. That will be bypassed to 7th line. At the 7th line, end of file exception is available. That will be converted to IO exception. That will be bypassed to 4th line. That is at M2 method call. Where IO exception is converted to exception, that exception will be bypassed to 16th line where that a.m1 method is called. Now here at compilation time itself, because of throwable, that generated exception will be bypassed to the caller of M1 method. Caller of M1 method is who is that caller of M1 method? JVM. JVM is not in the hands of the compiler. So at compilation time, no exception details are going to be displayed. Why? Because already we are sending these exception details to whom there? JVM. At runtime, JVM will take care about this exception handling. At runtime, JVM will take care about what there? Exception handling. Now at compilation time, we are not going to have any exception details now. Now let me compile this one. We are not going to get any exception details at present here. Java C space test.java. Java C space test.java. Here we are not having any exception details here at present. Yes, all of you are getting clarity on these points, guys. Right, sir. Now here we are not having any exception details clearly. But when I execute this program, JVM will receive that exception. JVM is able to handle that exception. How JVM is able to handle that exception internally? Inside the JVM, there is a component separately. That component is default exception handler. Internally, JVM has one separate component, that is what their default exception handler. the default exception handler is able to trace out the total exception, is able to display the exception details at all the pinpoints. At all the pinpoints. What are the pinpoints here? Now tell me. First exception is that will pinpoints in the sense JVM will perform the tracing of this exception at all the pinpoints of this tracing. That exception details are going to be displayed. What are the pinpoints? First pinpoint is the 10th line. Next pinpoint is what there? No, 7th line. Next pinpoint is what there? 4th line. Last pinpoint is what there? No, 16th line. With all the 3 or 4 locations, no exception details are going to be displayed. Now let us execute this program here. There we are able to get like what there. Click on enter button. Now here we are getting exception thread main java.io. End of file exception. What is the tracing here? No. Initially it is available at what line here? No, 10th line. Next it will be bypassed to what line here? No, 7th line. Next it will be bypassed to what line? 4th line. At the end it will be bypassed to what line here? No, 16th line. Up to this test.java file only. It's okay, fine. Here M3 method in A, M2 method in A, M1 method in A class. Now finally it will be bypassed to the main method which is available in which class now? Tester class here. But all are available in tester.java only. Tester.java only. All these locations are exist in which file here now? Tester.java only. Now this is what exactly the meaning of like what keyword here no? Throws keyword here we can understand. Finally, I required only one point. What is it? What's the point here I'm telling there? Throws keyword is able to bypass the generated exception from present method to the caller of this present method. To the caller method. Understand my point here? Finally, if you bypass the exception from main method by using throws keyword, then JVM will take care about that exception. JVM will activate default exception handler internally. Default exception handler is able to trace out that exception totally and it able to display the total exception details as per its tracing. As per its tracing is like what they know 10th line first, next 7th line, next one is the 4th line, and finally 16th line. That we are able to get the data. Guys, all of you are following these points now? Of course, some of you already aware about this topic here. That's why the content is very much clear. Now, let's observe this clearly. Next one is like what I'm telling to you. Try, catch, finally. What is this next one here? No? Try, catch, finally. All of you understand this. Everybody must understand this topic here. Try, catch, finally. Right, sir. Observe carefully. Try, catch, finally. See, in Java applications, I'm going to write one statement. No, try to check the validity of that statement. Either statement is the right statement or wrong statement. Now try to check that validity here. In Java applications, throws keyword is not handling the exceptions. Is not handling the exceptions really. Is not handling the exceptions really. It is bypassing exception from present method to the caller method in order to handle that exception. Come on guys, what throws keyword is doing here? No, what throws keyword is doing here? No, throws keyword is not handling the exceptions really, but what it is doing here? No, then it able to bypass the exception from present method to the caller method. It is skipping from responsibility or not. Throws keyword is skipping from responsibility or not. So it is not the real exception handler. Of course, we can say this is one type of handling. Really, it is not handling that exception, but it is bypassing that exception to somebody else to handle this exception. All right, sir. Now this is one point here I'm telling to you. That's okay, fine. But my requirement is what there in Java applications. If we want to handle the exceptions in Java applications, if we want to handle the exceptions really at the location where the exception is generated in Java applications, if we want to handle the exceptions really at the location where the exception is generated, then we have to use Then we have to use what they know, try, catch, finally block. Try, catch, finally syntax. That's it. This is the requirement to go for what there, try, catch, finally. Not required to bypass to somebody else. Where exception is coming, there immediately solution we have to provide. Where handling is required for that particular purpose only, here we are going to use like what there, like a try, catch, finally. Understand my point here? So what is the syntax of this try, catch, finally here? Here we are able to use try, a set of finish sections. Next one is a set of finish sections here we are able to provide here. Next one is catch. Here we have to write like what there, exception name, exception class name, of course. Then after that, what next one here, a reference a variable. Then inside this, here we are able to write what there, intersections again, a set of intersections. And finally, next one is like what there, finally block. There we are able to write like what there, intersections here we are able to write. This is the total syntax of the try, catch, finally. Guys, all of you observe carefully. So okay, this is frequently used topic in JDBC. In JDBC, some operations we are going to perform. For that purpose, some methods we are going to perform. That methods are able to raise some exceptions. Definitely, we need to go for exception handling in JDBC application right from first program. Right from very first program, we have to go for what they know, exception handling. Because of that reason only, we have to use like what there, try, catch, finally. But in very first program, I may go for throws keyword, but throws keyword is not suggestible always in our programming there. There we have to go for what now, try, catch, finally. So because of that reason, try to put more concentration, even though you understood already this topic there, but try to understand it now. Right, sir. Now, out of all these things, what exactly the meaning of try block? What is this try block here? Understand it now. What it able to include? Right, sir. Try block is able to include doubtful code. Doubtful code. Try block is able to include doubtful code which may raise an exception. Still that code is what there, doubtful for me, it may raise an exception. See, for example, 100 lines of code is available. Out of 100 lines of code, I'm doubtful about 50th line to 60th line. I'm doubtful about 15th line to 60th line about to get an exception. In these intersections only, I'm able to get an exception. Such a doubtful code only we are going to keep inside what they know, try block. One more point I'm telling you, try to understand this clearly. Once if we provide a set of instructions inside a try block, once if we provide a set of intersections inside a try block, then it will not give any guarantee to raise an exception. That means indirectly what I am telling there, try block is not giving any guarantee to raise an exception. Whatever the code we have provided inside the try block, that will be executed by JVM. Really exception is coming, then it will raise an exception. If exception is not coming there, the total try block is going to be executed. Once if we provide a set of intersections inside try block, then it will not give, then it is not giving any guarantee to raise an exception. Maybe exception may be raised, may not be raised. Yes, all of you are getting my point or not? Right, sir. Next, understand this next point here. For example, if we are having an exception inside the try block, then what will happen there? No. If we have an exception, in a try block, then what JVM will do? No. Come on, guys. Then what JVM will do? No. Then JVM will bypass flow of execution to catch a block. Am I right? Not only that, understand this point also clearly. Next one, not only that, JVM will create the generated exception object, and JVM will pass the generated exception object reference value as a parameter to catch block. Internally, when JVM identified exceptional situation, say for example, for your better understanding purpose, I'm writing this code here, try to understand it clearly. For example here, that you have to understand this point internally. That's why I'm taking this one. This is a try. This is a catch. For example, here I've written something else like what there, exception. This is my program. Listen carefully, all of you know. Inside this program, what it able to perform here? Say for example, float f is equal to 100 divided by 0. I have used it. By seeing that situation, we can understand it. What exception here we are able to get? No, arithmetic exception. What exception here? No, arithmetic exception will be generated. Am I right or not? Then internally, what happened there? Arithmetic exception object will be created. What exception object will be created? You know, arithmetic exception object will be created. Arithmetic exception AE is equal to new arithmetic exception. Arithmetic exception object will be created with some description also created. Not only that, what happened internally, immediately it able to raise that exception through new AE. Throw new AE. Previously also throw new arithmetic exception object. Now here I created object before that, the same reference value here we return. Then what next one can know? The same return value will be passed to what they know? E variable. This everything is going on along with the flow of execution only. When exception is raised here, flow of execution will come to catch block or not? When flow of execution is coming to the catch block, along with the flow of execution, whatever the arithmetic exception object is created, whatever the arithmetic exception is raised, that exception, that arithmetic exception reference value will come to what variable here? No, E variable. Clear or not? So this is going to be happen. Now exactly in this reference variable, what exactly the exception is which is generated inside the try block, that exception object reference is available. Am I right or not? Okay, so finally here, what's the point I'm telling to you? If we have an exception in try block, then JVM will bypass flow of execution to the catch block. Along with the flow of execution, along with the flow of execution, along with the flow of execution, JVM will create the generated exception object. JVM will create the generated exception object, and JVM will bypass the generated exception object reference value as a parameter to catch block. Understand it clearly? All right, sir. Next one is, then what next one can know? After execution of the catch block, then what block will be executed? Can know? Finally, block is also be executed. After catch block execution, finally block will be executed. Finally block will be executed. That's okay. This is when this scenario is going to be happen here. No, when it is going to be happen, when we have an exception inside the try block. For example, I have another point here. What is that another side here? If no exception is identified in a try block, if no exception is identified in a try block, then what we are able to do here? No, come on guys, what we are able to do, if no exception is identified in try block, where JVM will perform some actions. What JVM will perform then, and one more point I have to write here. 1 minute guys, 1 minute. If you have an exception try block, JVM will bypass flow of execution to the catch block by skipping all remaining intersections in a try block. This point is also important for us. Exactly where exception is coming inside the try block, from that point onwards, flow of execution will come to catch block by skipping the remaining intersections in a try block. For example, in try block, 10 lines of code is available. At the fifth line, I got an exception. From that fifth line itself, flow of execution will come to catch block. Then the remaining intersections, so sixth line to 10th line, will not be executed. They're not going to be executed by JVM. Understand my point here? No. Okay, fine. Now leave this point here. Next one is, if no exception is identified in try block, JVM, what JVM is able to do there? Now tell me, and JVM will execute the complete try block. The complete try block. JVM will execute the complete try block. Next one is at the end of try block. At the end of a try block, JVM will bypass flow of execution to finally block directly by skipping which block, catch block, by skipping what they know, catch block. Right, so this is the point here I'm telling to you, try to understand it. At the end of try block, JVM will bypass flow of execution to finally block directly by skipping catch block here. Right, sir. Then finally block is going to be executed. After finally also, if you have any intersection, it's going to be executed. Now this is what exactly the scenario I'm telling about, like what their try block here. Now let's understand this simplified content here. Now I want to prepare a diagram here. Try to understand this diagram, all of you know. Both the cases here I'm trying to represent. Right, sir. Now here, first I'm telling to you, a set of intersections are existed here. Then after that try block. Inside this try block, another set of intersections are existed. Okay. Here I'm telling to you, exception is coming, some exception. Then after this, catch block is going to be existed here. Now here we are able to write what their exception key. Then inside this also a set of intersections. Here we have written, right, after this set of intersections, then here what we are able to have here, finally block. Here also be another set of intersections. After writing this set of intersections, we closed this finally block. After that, another set of intersections here we are getting. Now here, what I am telling there, no exception here. Now observe carefully. Now here I am taking two cases here. What two cases here I am taking there? One is with exception, other one is without exception. What is this flow of execution here? First, let's understand the first flow of execution. Before try, whatever the intersections which are available, they are executed. After that, JVM will come inside what they know, try block. Inside the try block, every intersection is going to be executed until it gets an exception. Okay, if it has an exception inside the try block, then what happened then? No, that exception related object will be created. That object reference value will be provided to what variable, the respective catch block. Then along with that, the location where exception is coming from this particular point onward, that flow of execution will come to what they know, catch block, by skipping all the remaining intersections inside the try block. Now after the exception, these intersections are not executed by JVM. Next one, catch block will be executed totally. When a catch block is executed totally, what next one here it has to perform, they know. After this, directly finally block will be executed. Even after finally block also, flow of execution will not be terminated here. Now it will come to like what they know, directly after the finally block, whatever the intersections are available, that intersections are going to be executed. Right, sir. Right, sir. Next one is, understand my point clearly. This is about like what they know, when we have an exception inside the try block, what is the flow of execution here? No. For example, if you are not having any exception inside the try block here, first of all, what happened there? No, before try, everything will be executed. Now inside the try, it will execute every intersection until it gets either exception or at the end of the try. No exception is identified, it comes to the end of the try. When it comes to the end of the try, at the end of the try block, directly flow of execution will be bypassed to which block they know, finally block. Now here, finally block will be executed totally. Not only that finally block, after this finally block, if I have any intersections, no, that intersections are going to be executed. That's it. If we have exception in try block, what will happen? If you're not having exception inside the try block, what will happen? So this is a flow of execution here. We can understand about this try block. Right, sir? Now here we are understanding like what there D try. Now here try, catch, finally syntaxes. The next one, after completion of this, then what next one here we have to do there? This is about like what there, try block explanation here I've given there. Total information here we understood. Next one is what there after completion of this. Now tell me guys, after completion of this, catch block. Try block is completed here. Next one is like what there, catch block. Now you only tell me what is the purpose of this catch block now. What is the main intention of this catch block here? We have to observe carefully. It will be executed when an exception is identified in a try block. When an exception is identified in try block, then automatically this catch block will be executed. Next one is what it will do there. It will catch the exception from a try block, and it will catch the exception from try block, and it will display all exception details on console, or to what I am telling them, to users. Exception details are going to be displayed on console or to the users. Understand my point? Okay, its main intention is what there, catch the exception and display exception details to the user, either on console or some logs. We are going to maintain some log files, maybe whatever it may be. We are going to display some exception details, giving some information about this exception details now. Nice, sir. Next one is after completion of this, observe carefully. Next one is how we are able to display these exception details. There are three ways to display exception details. There are three ways to display exception details. What are the three ways to display exception details? You know, first one is by using what methods are, now tell me? Print stack trace method. Observe carefully what this print stack trace method is able to do now. It will display the exception details. It will display the exception details like what there. What details it able to display there now? Exception name. It will display the exception details like what there, exception name. Next one is what there now, exception description. I'll show an example, don't worry for it if you're not aware about this point here. Exception name, then what next one, you know, exception description. After this exception description, then what next one, you know, exception location. Exception location by using what there, print stack trace method. This will be used by JVM by default. JVM will use what their print stack trace method internally. When we are not using try catch finally, whenever we are using throws keyword even in the main method prototype, finally JVM is taking the responsibility of displaying that exception details or not. What JVM has used internally, what they know, this is a print stack trace method only. Because of that reason only we are getting exception name, exception description, and all the locations of the exception. The total tracing of the exception we are getting. Right, sir. Now this is one point here we can understand. Next one is after completion of this, the second thing is like what there, by using system.out.println of e. That is what is the meaning of it here internally, e dot toString method. You know already, when we pass a particular reference value, when we pass a particular class object reference value as parameter to system.out.println, internally one method will be called. What method will be executed there now? ToString method will be executed. Now observe carefully, the ToString method in exception class is able to display only name of the exception and description of the exception, but not what they know, location of the exception, so it able to display the exception details. The exception details like what there, what details can know, like exception name, comma name, and exception description. Exception name and as well as like what they know, exception description. That's it guys. Now this is another thing here I'm telling there. Okay, I will show an example, don't worry for it. Now the third approach is like what there. Now by using get a message method, okay fine. Now how we are able to use that get message method here, observe carefully. It able to display exception details like what there, What exception details here we are able to get there? Like only exception description. It able to display the exception details only. Exception details exception details exception description only. Understand, guys? Now let us see one example here. Simple example here. I'm telling to you. Not required to go for any too much example here. Very simple example here. I want to take it. Now try to observe this clearly. Now get new Java project here. I want to prepare there. ABB07. Next button and click on finish button. Not create. Not required. Now let me create like what there a tester.java. Right click here new. Then what I'm going to be provide here now directly a package here I want to provide. What package here I need to be specify there com dot Durgasoft dot abb07 dot test only test package only. Now inside this I want to prepare a test class new class test class here I'm going to use and main method is required here. Click on finish button. Here we are getting a test class with main method. Now inside this then what I'm telling there try catch syntax is available directly. Just a tr type it now. Click on control space. Automatically the syntax here we are able to get. There we are able to show our point here. Now try to understand it now. Finally block namesake here I'm going to provide. Finally block namesake here I'm providing there. Now try to understand it clearly. Now inside this float f is equal to 100 divided by 0. I'm sure here we are able to get one exception. What is that exception here now? What is that exception here now? Arithmetic exception. Now here I want to display the details here clearly. Then after that, what next one here now? Sysnot println of e. That means internally two string method will be executed. One line space. Next one is what the sysnot println of e dot get a message method. E dot get message method. Like this here I'm going to provide. Namesake I have taken finally block and remaining in sections here. Otherwise we don't require anything. Right, sir. Now observe carefully. Right, sir. Now just I'm trying to execute this. Observe carefully. Three exception messages here we are getting. First one here, exception name. 1 minute, 1 minute. Print stack trace method. Yeah, that's nice. Now here, observe carefully. This is name of the exception, description of the exception. This is location of the exception. Means that which method we have used to display this data? No, print stack trace method. Next one is this is what they know, name of the exception and the description of the exception, but the location of the exception is not displayed here. Then what we are getting it is no, this is because of which method here no, to string method. That is not outed println of e. Now here we are getting only description. This is because of what here no, get message method. That's it, guys. Now this is what exactly the example here I'm showing there how to display an exception details in different types, different ways here clearly. Next one. So, and one more point here I have to specify there. Observe carefully. In catch block, one more point I'm telling there. Catch block is able to take an exception name as a parameter. It should be what there. Observe carefully here. It should be what? Here we are getting an exception. Here we have taken exception name or not? Now it should be. Here what exception is generated, sir? Actually, arithmetic exception is generated. So I can use either arithmetic exception. No problem. We can use either arithmetic exception. Same data here we are getting. Or we can use like what there now? Super class of the arithmetic exception. That is runtime exception also here we can use there. We are able to get the same output here now. Right, sir. Now here, not required even runtime exception, and it's a super class also here. We can specify what is that super class here? No exception. In general, we are going to use exception. It able to handle all the types of exceptions which are subclasses of the respective exception here. No. Right, sir. Now this is totally the point here. What I'm telling to you. So that's why here I'm telling to you. Right, sir. What we are able to specify there. Third point here. It able to display now it able to display. Then where we specified this point here? 1 minute, 1 minute. Yes, sir. No. Yeah. Catch block is able to take an exception name as a parameter. It should be either same as the generated exception in a try block, or superclass to the generated exception. Either it should be same as the generated exception or superclass to the generated exception, that we are able to take now. But in the generic way, we are not going to provide a particular exception class name. Simply we are going to specify what their no exception. Simply we are going to specify what their exception. That is a superclass name. If I specify that superclass name, it able to handle all the exceptions which are either same as exception or subclasses of the exception here now. That is generic way it is available for us now. That's okay, fine. Next one is, now tell me, after completion of this, finally, what is that next one again? No, finally block. Right, sir. Finally block. Guys, I think all of you are aware about these concepts, right? So my intention is, if at least one person is available without knowing these concepts and moving on to the JDBC, even at least that person also I need to give clarity. And moreover, one time if I repeat all these points, you are able to recollect all the points, then successfully, comfortably, we are moving on to what they know, advanced Java. Because of that reason, I'm taking this much of time, I'm explaining all these points effectively. I don't mind for it, even though it is repeated content for you, but still we have to understand it. We have to practice a little bit. All the points here, whatever the points here, I'm telling to you now. Why? Because to go for advanced Java, we required all the points. Even in my core Java class, I completed these topics. But still I'm repeating all the points in a sense because of thinking some other persons, they are not aware about this exception handling effectively. Even if you are coming to my advanced Java class with zero knowledge on core Java, simply we can cope up with our advanced Java content with this introductory part, with this prerequisite part. That's why we are planning all these concepts here. Right. Very soon we are going to finish this prerequisite, then immediately we are going to start what they know directly JDBC content here. Right. Now let's observe carefully. Finally block, guys. Then what's the purpose of this finally block now? Listen carefully. Listen, all of you listen carefully. For example, I'm discussing the content here. You are coming to the class. You are coming to the class. Two cases I'm telling you, try to understand it. You are attending this class. Unexpectedly, power failure was happened in the middle of the class. Think of it, now it's the middle of the class. Unexpectedly, some power failure was happened. But what I have done here, two cases are available with me. One is cancel the class right away, then asking to the students come on tomorrow at the same time. And secondary, other one is no, I'm not going to cancel the class. I can manage to explain the content even without projectors. My appearance is sufficient to explain the content. That means here we have to understand, damn sure class is going to be happen. Even the power failure is happened here, simply I can take the class. Or else maybe I have some power backup system. Through that power backup system, I can run this class here. This is case number one. Case number two. Case number two. No power failure is happened. No power failure is happened. Class is going on. I get my point or not? So observe carefully. Class is continuing. Then whatever the content I had in my mind there, everything I'm trying to discuss. Good. Now in both the cases, two cases are given there. In both the cases, what is common thing here now? Class must be continued. Class must run. Class must be happened. This is guaranteed one or not? This class is going to be happen is a guaranteed one or not? If I give such confidence to you, definitely you may feel it's a guaranteed one. Definitely if you come to Durgasoft, class is going to be happen. Guaranteed one or not? Right, sir. Similarly, in a try catch finally, whether we are having an exception or not inside the try block, whether we are executing catch block or not, that doesn't matter. Finally block is giving guarantee for execution in its code. Finally block is executing its content minimum with a minimum guarantee. Finally block is giving guarantee for execution of its code, irrespective of getting exception in try block, irrespective of executing catch block. No, that means whatever the intersections it has internally, that intersections will be executed at any cost of our application execution. at any status of our application execution. This is what exactly the purpose of like what there finally block. Please recognize, put more concentration on this finally block. I'm going to use this finally block effectively in JDBC applications. Okay, now let me write that information here. Right, sir. It will include a set of intersections. It will include a set of intersections, which must be executed by JVM. It must be executed by JVM, irrespective of getting an exception in a try block and irrespective of executing catch block. Irrespective of executing try block and irrespective of executing catch block, that doesn't matter. But what is going to be get guaranteed one here no, that intersections must be executed by JVM irrespective of getting an exception inside the try block, irrespective of executing what they know catch block. It doesn't matter whether we are getting an exception or not. Doesn't matter whether we executed complete try block or not. It doesn't matter whether we executed catch block or not. But final block is giving guarantee for its execution. There is no guarantee to execute complete try block. There is no guarantee to execute complete catch block. But finally block is giving guarantee. Finally block is giving what they know guarantee. Right. Sir. That's the point I'm telling to you. Next one is after completion of this particular content here, what I'm telling to you, observe carefully. Which instructions are going to be provided in general in the finally block? Let's say, for example, JDBC program I'm telling to you. JDBC program I'm telling you. In JDBC program, I'm going to use so many resources. In my JDBC program, I'm able to use so many resources. What resources here I'm able to use in general in JDBC programs? No, maybe streams I'm going to use. I'm going to take some dynamic input. Maybe buffer editor I'm going to use. Maybe console I'm able to use. Maybe scanner I'm able to use. Number of resources for taking dynamic input I'm able to get. That is point number one. I'm able to get a database connection. Database is available somewhere else. Our program is running at some other location. Between these two, we need to establish the connection. Here, database connection is required. In the case if my application is a network-based application, network connection is also required. So in general, in every enterprise application or in general, in the JDBC application, we are going to use these many resources. Streams may be, database connection may be, network connection may be, these many resources we are going to use. Sir, all of you get my point or not? Whenever we are using these resources, no, the resources respective operations when we are performing the resources related operations, automatically some exceptions will be raised. Automatically some exceptions will be raised. To handle these exceptions, if we use try catch finally, where inside the try block we are going to create the resources. Before the try block, we are going to declare the resources. Inside the try block, we are going to create the resources. Understand my point or not? But inside the finally block, we are going to close the resources. Inside the finally block, we are going to close the resources. Why? Why we are going to close the resources inside the finally block? No. Observe carefully. While performing database operations, while doing operations with these resources, no. If you are getting an exception, if you are not getting an exception, that doesn't matter. At the end, that resources must be closed. While performing operations with these resources, some exceptions may be raised, may not be raised. If you are getting an exception, at the end of that failure case, we have to close the resources. If you are not getting an exception, successful case is available, where at the end of the successful case also, I have to close the resources now. But closing the resources must be mandatory. Closing the resources it will be mandatory condition, mandatory things. So such type of mandatory things we are going to keep inside what they know finally block. Why? Because finally block is giving guarantee for doing the operations irrespective of getting exception in try block, irrespective of executing catch block. Yes, sir. All of you following my point or not? So this is what exactly the intention of like what they know finally block here. Now let me have one statement here in general. Observe carefully. In general, in Java applications, we may use number of resources. We may use number of resources like what resources can know, like what their streams may be. Next one is like what their database connections may be. Next one is like what their network connections may be, and so on. All right, sir. When we perform operations with these resources, there may be a chance to get an exception. There may be a chance to get an exception. Right, sir. When we perform operations with these resources, there may be chances are available. There may be chances are available. There may be chances are available to get exceptions. To get exceptions. To get exceptions. Here to handle the exceptions. Here to handle the exceptions, if we use try catch finally, if you use try catch finally, then we have to use the following convention. Then we have to use the following convention. What's that convention here we are able to use there? Observe carefully. That convention would be like what there? First one is declare the resources before try block. Declare the resources before what there? No, before try block. Next one is what? Next one here after completion of this? No, declare the resources before try block. That's okay, good. Create the resources. Create the resources inside a try block. Create the resources inside what they know? Try block. Last one is what they know? Close the resources inside a finally block. Alright, so this is a convention here we are able to follow. But here my point is what there? Why this last step is available now? Why the last step is available? That point I am telling there. Right, sir. In the above context, we are able to close all the resources inside a finally block. We are able to close all the resources inside the finally block. Inside the final block. Why? Because finally block is giving guarantee to execute the instructions. Finally block is giving guarantee to execute the instructions. So because of that reason only here we required like what they know this particular in the above context we are able to close all the resources inside finally block. Why? Because final block is giving guarantee to execute the intersections. Understand my point here? Here the reason is what there intersections must be closed, resources must be closed in a Java application, whatever may be the status of the program execution. Because of that reason here, finally block is going to be utilized. Right, sir. Just a simple example here. I'm telling to you. Now here, buffer reader BR is equal to null. Then what next one here? Database connection con is equal to null. Okay, that's enough here. Understand my point here? Or maybe socket S is equal to null. How many resources here we created now? 3 resources here. Just we declared, not created here. Then I'm going to take what they know, try catch some exception key. Here we are able to write what there, e dot print stack trace method. I'm going to use every time print stack trace method only. Now this is like what there finally block. Now just we declare the resources now. Inside this try block we have to create the resources here. How I'm going to create the resources now? BR is equal to new buffered reader of new input stream reader of system dot in that we are able to write. Now this is the way of creating one resource now. Khan is equal to, in JDBs I will talk about this code here, don't worry for it. Driver manager dot get connection of 3 parameters are existed here, not required immediately. The 3 parameters now, just assume it. This is one of the scenario. Next one is like what there, S is equal to new socket of some other parameters here we are going to take, and so on and so on. All the resources here we created. All the resources here, what we have done there, we created inside the try block. Before try block, we declare the resources. Inside the try block, just we created the resources. Now here, when the total operations are completed, inside the finally block, what we have to do there? Inside the finally block, what we have to do there? Just we have to close the resources now. What we are able to know? Beer dot close method, then con dot close method, then after that s dot close method. But remember carefully, these close methods we have written inside the finally block or not? Okay. Inside this try block, if you are getting an exception, flow of execution will come to catch block, then finally block. Operations are closed. Resources are closed. If no exception is available inside the try block, no, total try block will be executed. Flow of execution will come to what block? Then a final block. Here also be intersections are going to be closed. But there is a small problem here. Try to understand it now. Whatever the close operations here we provided, whatever the close operations here we provided, close methods, no, these close methods are able to raise again some exceptions. These close methods are able to raise again what they know, some exceptions. When these close methods are able to raising some exceptions here, then we have to handle that exceptions or not. Now it is not try block. If try block is available, then it able to handle it. But now it is a finally block. Inside the finally block, handling mechanism is not available. But these methods, close methods are rising some exceptions here. So here to handle these close methods, there we have to use again like what they know. Here we have to use again what they know. Try catch finally. Again here we have to use like what there, try catch finally. Right, sir. Now here we have to understand like what there, catch some exception key. Then after that, here some final block. If you want to use that, we can use it. Otherwise, not required. Right, sir. Now like this here, we are able to provide the content. Guys, all of you understand this clearly. Listen carefully. There are two problems with the above situation. What are the two problems with the above situations? You know, drawbacks with the above approach. What are the drawbacks with above approach? That means closing operations inside the final block. I'm telling there. Two drawbacks are available. One is like what there, writing try catch finally inside finally block is a bit confusion code, is a confusion oriented code. Am I right or not? Bit confusion oriented code. Always nested try catch finally is giving a bit confusion. Like you may feel somewhat burdened by seeing the type of code. So it's not a simple code. Writing try catch finally inside the try or inside the finally or inside the catch now, it's somewhat burdenful thing. It's somewhat a confusion kind of code. It's not a simple code. But Java is always wants to provide simplified code. This is one thing. And the second one is, now tell me guys, developers must perform close operations explicitly. Developers must perform what operations? They know close operations explicitly. Here developers must take the responsibility to close the resources. Developers must take the responsibility to close the resources, explicitly, to close the resources explicitly. It is not giving guarantee for close operations. Of course, finally block is giving guarantee for executing that. When finally block is giving guarantee, when we provide close methods inside the finally block, then it is giving guarantee. But if developer is forgot to specify the close methods inside the finally block, depending on developer only, developer may put that close method inside the final block. He may not put the close method inside the final block. If he's giving close method inside the final block, then it will be executed guaranteed. Guarantee is available. But developer forgot to specify the close method. Developer is forgetting to specify the close method inside the finally block. Is there any guarantee for it? No. Right, sir. That's why here I want to automate this situation. Here. That's why here what I'm telling to you, it is not giving guarantee for close operations. Why? Because developers may provide close methods. Developers may forget to provide close methods inside finally block. If developers are providing, then the code will be executed minimum. If developers are not providing that, even though finally block is available, then what it will do if close methods are not available inside the finally block? No, that's why this kind of problems will come here. Then what I'm telling there, to overcome the above problems, understand my point here. To overcome the above problems, Java has provided a new feature in Java 7 version. That is, what is that new feature, guys? That new feature is try with resources. Definitely, I'm going to use try catch finally. In the case, I'm going to use what they know, try with resources also. Understand it, what I'm telling there. So, what we are going to use there, try with the resources. Required or not? I'm asking you, what is the problem with the traditional try catch finally approach? No, two problems are available. What are the two problems? No, that code may increase the confusion to the developers. Second problem is what they know, developers have to write close methods inside the finally block. It may or may not happen. So there is no guarantee for closing the resources. But we must get guarantee for closing the resources in our Java applications. But there is no guarantee for it. And then in this scenario, what we have to do there? In this scenario, what we have to do there? Then Java has provided a new feature in Java 7 version. That new feature is what they know. Try with the resources. All right, sir. Then what is going to be happen in try with resources? No, I'll give clarity. Try to understand it. No, in a try with the resources, JVM will close all the resources automatically without developers interference. JVM will close all the resources automatically when it is coming out of try block. When flow of execution is coming out of try block, when JVM is coming out of try block, automatically to identify what resources are declared with the try block, that resources are going to be closed automatically. Right now, here what I'm telling there, where developers are, also carefully, where developers are not required to provide close methods inside what they know, finally block. If JVM is closing all the resources automatically internally, is there a requirement for developer to provide close methods inside the finally block? No. Yes, all of you are following or not? Right, sir. Is there a requirement for developer to close all the resources internally? Not required to close all the resources internally or not? Automatically JVM will close all the content here. This is one point I'm telling there. So if it is the case, then it is not required to provide finally block in a try with the resources. I get my point or not? Then if it is a case, if you are not going to close the operations, for example, if you have any other requirements to provide finally block, then we can provide. But if it is a case, only closing operations if you want to maintain, then it is not required to provide finally block in a try catch finally. Not required to provide what there in a try catch finally, or simply we can specify like what they know, try with the resources. That's okay, right? Nice. Finally block is, that means finally block is not required. Finally block is not required. So with the try with resources, no, finally block is not required. So confusion code is going to be removed. Once finally block is not written here, no confusion about our code here. No nested try catch finally again. Then what is the syntax of this particular one here? No. Then syntax of this try with resources is like what there? Try in general, what we are going to write, sir? Try, then here what we are able to provide there, no, catch, and some exception here we are able to write, something else here we are able to write. That's okay. But with the try with resources, what I'm telling there, here we have to take parenthesis. Along with the try name, we have to take what there? Parenthesis. There we have to write like what there? Resource one, semicolon. resource 2 semicolon and so on and so on and so on semicolon resource n number of resources here we are able to provide. All of you get my point or not? N number of resources here we are able to provide, right? But all the resources must be auto closable resources. Where all the resources must be what resources there? No, auto closable resources. Where all the specified resources must be auto closable resources. That is, they must extend or implement. They must extend or implement auto closable interface. They must implement auto closable interface. That's it. Either directly or indirectly, auto closable interface must be implemented. Of course, all the streams are auto closable. Database connections are auto closable. So no need to think about this point too much in the future. That's it, guys. Now this is about like what there auto closable resources, the content here. Try with resources here. I'm going to use even this one also in JDBC application. But practical things I will show in JDBC content. Why? Because as of now we don't have any awareness on like a streams topic and as well as like what they know JDBC connections, maybe network connections. That's why just a syntaxes and theoretical information are given there. But we are going to understand this content effectively in a JDBC applications directly. Sir, all of you are getting clarity or not? Right, sir. Now this is what we are having the content here we can understand. That's okay, fine. So finally here, what topic here we completed here? Exception handling related topics here we completed. Majorly I focused on three things now. Throws keyword, next one is a try catch finally, problems with the try catch finally, then try with resources. These are the three things here I have used, I have discussed in this today's class clearly. Yes, sir. All of you are getting it or not? Then tomorrow is what day? Saturday, right? What you are expecting on Saturday? There is a class on Saturday also. Don't worry. On Sunday, no class for advanced Java. Sunday is a gap, but by days goes on. If the situation is demanding to us to complete or to take the classes on Sundays, then I don't have any hesitation to take classes on Sundays. Definitely, I'll provide class on weekends also. Why? Because the bad thing with me is what there, lot of content is available. But I have to explain each and every point in a very much clear. I'm unable to skip even a single point also. I don't know about your situation, but my situation is on a particular day, if I skip out only one point here, I may not get satisfaction about my classes. Of course, you are not aware about it. If I miss any point there, you are not aware about that missing point here. Even you are not understanding whether I missed it or not. But internally, one more person is available with me. That person is giving question mark to me. Then definitely I have to give response to him. For everybody, I think so. This is fact what I'm telling there. Everybody, your physical appearance in outside is one side. But for everybody, internally, one more person is there. Every time he's asking to you whether you are doing right or not. Even though you are giving some wrong statements in outside now, but internal person, when he is asking to you, you are going to respond properly. You are going to give right information to me. Yes, now I'm doing wrong. I'm doing wrong. Like that you are saying internally. If explicitly any person is coming, is asking to you what you are doing there, then you are saying, I'm doing right only. But internally you are saying there, yes, I'm doing wrong only. Yeah, to that internal person, we have to be responsible, right? So that's why here the point is what? No point is going to be missed out. Everything we are going to understand. Once you are taking step inside my classes, no. Complete awareness I have to provide. I'm not going to think much about the durations also. Why? Because contentful information I have to conduct. I'm conducting the classes like with the contentful, but you need to have patience level. Simple example. Directly on first day itself, I'm going to start JDBC. But why I'm taking these many topics as a responsibility to provide this prerequisite now? It is actually out of the box. It's not inside the box, it's out of the box. But still I'm preparing. I'm giving the ground, total ground. Once you are taken step to come for advanced Java, you must have these basics now. But I'm discussing these points here. Once you started JDBC classes here, once we are providing JDBC classes now, you should not come back We should not come back for core Java content here. That's why I'm giving this much of clarity on this foundation, fundamentals now. So maybe 1 or 2 days of time, 2 to 3 days of time, we may finish it. Once we are completed that, then we'll move on to like what their JDB. See, we will not check back again on core Java topics there. That's why the required information here I'm discussing with you clearly. Why I'm giving this much of explanation there? Still 1 or 2 members are thinking about it. I know by seeing your faces there. Why these core Java topics are discussing again? That's why for you I'm giving much clarity. Okay, have trust on me. Come to the class. I'll fulfill your trust completely. Once again, I'm telling there at the end of the advanced Java, I'm going to see all of you to teach advanced Java to somebody else. Like that, I will increase your confidence level. You can teach a total advanced Java to somebody else. That is my way of thinking about your content there. But once you're in a position to teach advanced Java to somebody else, no, getting job is nothing. You can play with interviewer in outside. Interviewer is not going to play with you. You can play with interviewer. So such type of confidence is required when we are understanding the content here. So that's why what I'm requesting to everybody, don't have deviation from the content. Don't neglect the content even right from beginning. Last point. In general, whenever if I'm giving a book to you, one textbook to you, if I asked you, try to start reading of that book now, what is your approach there actually? Directly we will, without checking index and without checking anything, directly we'll go 10th page of that book, where first chapter is available. From that point onwards, you are starting. But what I'm trying to say to you, don't go for the 10th page directly. Right from first page. Before this first page, no, Roman numbers are available for page number. From that point onwards, from pre-page of the page also, pre-page of the book onwards, that we have to start. Where you are going to understand the intention of that particular book. There to which readers this book is very much suitable. That all the details you are able to get right from pre-page of the book. From that point onwards, you have to start. We are doing the same thing here. It's not like a 0 level onwards I'm starting. It's like -100 onwards I'm starting. So you will not come back for any prerequisite part once we completed. That's the point here what I'm telling them. Right, sir? That's okay, fine. Tomorrow there is a class. Don't miss out that class. Tomorrow I'm going to start that very important topic there. That is like what they know, buffered reader, dynamic input approaches in every JDB's application. Right from first application, I'm going to use this dynamic input approaches. No, now these dynamic input approaches are not avoided by majority of the people. Up to now, up to exceptionally, almost all the members are aware about these concepts. Next time, but these topics are not aware by you, majority of you. Definitely, it will be useful for you. Without failure, try to attend the class here, right? 1 minute. So tomorrow there is a festival. Please, what is the festival tomorrow? Right, sir. Right. Festival, no festival. Even the festival is there, no problem. As a matter of 1.5 hour class. Why we are giving that reason, sir? See, because of that festival, you are saying that don't want to attend the class now. It's a reason only, right? Don't go for it. There is a class on tomorrow. No festivals. Until the completion of advanced Java, no festivals. Only one festival, maybe I may think about it. Meanwhile, I may complete your content also. That is a Pongal occasion only. We can expect the holiday. But on Sundays, maybe first 1 or 2 Sundays, I may not go for the class. Next one, but definitely on Sundays also, we are going to have the classes now. Right, sir. Nagul Chauthi, na? My name is Nagoor Babu. Even I am not celebrating that. Why you are thinking about it now? Okay? Right, sir. Don't worry. Nagul Chauthi celebrations we will perform inside the classes. Don't worry for it. Thank you, guys. Thanks a lot. Meet on tomorrow.